Greetings! You're watching Septum Sen vs. the World. I'm Septum Sen, and today we are going to end our journey. I have started this journey through a mistake of mine, assuming that a sequel to a movie was the sequel to a movie that I had watched. But John Johnson came into my life. He trashed my life and made it into what it is today. A shallow, empty shell of what we had. But, any case, I am bringing you the last part of Skeleton Key. Skeleton Key 3, Part 2. Well, again, this is, you know the tale if you've been watching my series. If you haven't, definitely take a watch. I will be including the links to the last couple of parts in my video description, and hopefully you all will watch them and go on this journey with me together. Now, this continues where the third one left off, which was a cliffhanger, but decides, well, it's been 5 years since the last film that we did, so 5 years passed. So we follow our hero again after the world has been taken over by evil. And he's joined with a ragtag crew that is deciding to fight against the evil doctor's schemes to take over the world. Now, we're going to talk about the positives and the negatives again. Now, the positive is pretty simple. This has a plot. I wasn't willing to believe it. I was in denial for the entirety of it, but this actually has a plot. Coherent plot, so pushing it, but it has a plot. It actually has a start and a finish. You know what's going on. They tell you what the friggin' skeleton key is in this. They let you know what it does, and they use it. So you actually get to understand a little bit of what's going on throughout this entirety. So, when you reach the end of this, there is sort of a satisfying conclusion. And I actually believe this is probably the best out of the 4 films. I really do. I think this actually ties it up well. It's actually a pretty good parody. I was actually kind of shocked by it. The way they wrapped it up, it definitely did that. You got to see a lot better production value. The actors actually did a much better job at what they were doing. It's still B-level, but at the same time, in reality, you get what you work with. And I was quite pleased with that. That actually really did develop in a way that I was very proud of to see. Especially after sitting through the other 3. And of course, costume design. That's something actually that's been pretty decent throughout the entire series. I actually have enjoyed the costume design and the makeup and such. They actually did a very good job with this, and for that I give them props for that. Lloyd Kaufman was involved in this series, at least in some level, which surprises me, and it doesn't surprise me at the same time. If you listen to interviews with the guy, if you've actually gotten to see the guy at cons, you understand where the man's thought process is. He's generally a good guy from what I've seen and heard, and he likes to support projects like this. So, with that, let's talk about the bad. The racial insensitivity in this is bad. And I understand for what it is. You can throw in a lot of that stuff. It's lighthearted. It's not, doing it to be like evil. They're doing it to poke fun at it. And I can understand that, but it still kind of just stings when you actually hear that stuff. With that also, though it has more of a coherent plot, it's still slightly that madness coming forward again. But with that, really, that's about all I have to say about the negativity for this one. I was quite surprised. I mean, I could go in and say, oh, it's cheesy, the acting is cheesy, and all that stuff. But that's what it is. I mean, you don't go into into one of the Transformers movies and say, well, there were too many explosions. I mean, you know what you're getting into. That's the type of movie you're watching. So, yeah, you're going to get explosions. You're going to get boom, boom, boom. It's Michael Bay, So, with this is John Johnson. You get what you go into it. By the time you're at Skeleton Key 3 Part 2, you should not be surprised by any of this. Matter of fact, my surprises were actually the very good qualities of this film. And for that, I actually give this a 7. Believe it or not. It was entertaining. It was worth watching. Though probably more of a 6.5 when you take it into the context of the whole, because you have to get through the other 3 to get to here. But let me talk about my final thoughts about this particular series. I actually don't hate this series. I got into it on a bad note, but for what it is, it's a decent B movie series. If I were to rank the series as far as what I like the best to what I like the worst, it would probably be 3 Part 2, Part 2, Part 3, and then finally the first one. And I really think the first one's detriments are more they didn't know what they were doing. They were starting out. They were, in that vein. So for me, I understand. But with that, I wanted to go ahead and finish this journey through horror and terror, my own personal experience, and say, it wasn't that bad when you get to it in the end. If John Johnson somehow is listening to this, I want you to know that though I've cursed your name on several occasions, it's all in good fun. And I would say that I would give the series as a whole about a 6 on average rating, if you're taking the whole thing in context. Just be ready for a lot of chaos, be ready for a lot of nonsensical stuff, be ready for a lot of B-movie, and be ready to steel yourself against that I'm ready to be offended nature. We seem to be even more sensitive to offense in our society, and this movie plays off of that. So if you can deal with that sort of thing, I say give this a try. I think you'll enjoy it. Otherwise, if you're not a big B-movie fan, if you are very sensitive, stay as far away from this as possible. So I bid adieu to John Johnson, and we will be picking up with probably some Naruto coverage in the near future. So for those of you who like anime, you're going to be in for a treat, because there are a lot of Naruto movies that I have not seen, and I will be covering most of them. Well, that's the end, and I will see you the next time. Take care.